Good morning, everybody. It's lovely to see you all here with us today. We are just going to wait a few minutes to kind of let some people roll in. But if you haven't already, then please make sure you make the most of this time to download Slice. Have a go. You get your first week free. And once we hit, we'll give it a couple more minutes, and then we'll start cracking on. All right, cool. We'll start now. Good morning, everyone. It is wonderful to have you all here with us today. This morning we are joined by some of the wonderful people who are responsible for launching Slice, which is the UK's first ever eSIM-only network. Today we're going to have about 40 minutes of panel discussion, and then at the end we'll have time for questions as well. So feel free to use the Q&A box as we go through, and we'll pull out some of those questions for the last 15 minutes or so. Quick show of hands in the chat. Can I just see who has tried using an eSIM before? Who here has given it a go? All right. So as I can see there's definitely a bunch of us here who have been lucky enough to fumble your way through what is one of the hardest things to install, I think, on a digital device since kind of CD-ROMs. The first eSIM experiences on mobile will definitely take you back to those days. It's clunky, it's confusing, you're never quite sure if it's going to work, you don't know if you're there or not. You're constantly showing these different messages like it's working, it's not working, make sure you don't re-download it, don't turn your phone off, do turn your phone off. Slice is nothing like that. Today we're going to hear about how Slice, along with the team at Mindszi and Planes, have taken that experience and made it worthy of 2024. What it takes to build a brand that shakes up the market, and also how this technology is going to, or is already forcing incumbents to just do a better job for their customers. So a few introductions before we jump into it. My name is CJ. I'm one of the co-founders of Planes. We are a digital product and design studio, and we've been lucky enough to work alongside these fabulous humans in bringing Slice to life. We're joined by Michael, who is the co-founder of Mindszi. It's an API-first platform which does all of the sort of like actual hard work behind the scenes in bringing the eSIM to life. All the stuff that we then kind of layer this beautiful user experience on top of. And then finally, Jenna and Rob, who are the marketing and product directors at Slice. They are the brains behind the brand. They've pulled the vision together in record time to launch the UK's first eSIM-only brand. Cool. So jumping straight in, Jenna, can you just quickly tell us a little bit about how you guys spotted the opportunity for Slice and how it came to be?
Yeah, of course. So we started like most new businesses. So we did a lot of focus group research, and we found that customers, particularly under 30s, had expectations that they just weren't being met. So they expect digital services to make their life simpler, more convenient. So things like Monzo, Uber, Tinder, Deliveroo, these brands all deliver really slick services in an instant. And there was a feeling that their mobile networks just weren't keeping up. So particularly when it came to loyalty, offering good deals to join, and basically punishing you instead of rewarding you, with price rises if you're locked into big contracts. The longer you stayed, the kind of worse it got. You were just a number. So in research, we looked at a couple of things from both a product and a service perspective. And the things that mattered most from a product level were the things that you'd expect, 5G, data, roaming, and no contracts, have that great flexibility. And that gave us a really good product level foundation to work with. But there was a lot to think about in terms of building a customer experience that felt modern and progressive, but at the same time, building a brand and service that felt like something people wanted to be a part of. Mobile's essentially utility. So the brand and the experience is the magic that's going to bring people in and give them a reason to stay. So there's a bigger brand level thought that we could tap into, to bring that magic around being an alternative to the big established players, of not just being in it for your money, and nothing else. So ownership felt like a big thread we could build on as a core part of our new service. A lot of young people feel pretty disenfranchised. You know, big business institutions have sort of stacked the odds against you. So they have to hustle harder. Things like owning a home, which were par for the course for previous generations, are really much further from reach. So we saw the chance to give back some agency, control, and ownership ultimately to these customers, and readdress that power imbalance that we were seeing between brands and people. And that's really sort of the essence of what Slice is about.
And what do you, or why do you think the telco customer experience is so bad? I guess kind of Rob and Michael, I'm looking at you guys.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think for me, it's been really interesting because I've only been in telco for a year, so I've coming into the industry from a very consumer background. It's been enlightening to kind of ask the questions of why are we doing things in a certain way, and there's a lot of I guess in the industry there's so much legacy. It's been an industry that's been around for a very long time. There's legacy technology, legacy business processes, legacy systems. So I think it's a real challenge. We've been extremely lucky that we can build it from the ground up. But I think trying to bring in new technology for some of the bigger players, my favorite example is I got an eSIM on one of the big incumbents. I had to go into a store and got a printed card with a QR code on it. And I can understand there's a couple of reasons that you might want to do that. I think, the first is why make the process really simple to switch providers? Because, that's your objective is to retain that customer. If they're on a 2-year contract, why would you want them to switch? I think there's that reason. There's obviously the legacy systems and other examples of other incumbents where you still have to put your postal address in to get an eSIM. There's a load of processes and things underneath there that need to change in a massive organization, and we haven't had that. I think there's I guess there's a lot of reasons, and a lot of it is legacy, and I think a lot of it is as Jenna spoke to, is you're not rewarded for your longevity, but as the sort of the ecosystem bundles, and you don't have to buy your phone with your plan. You can get onto monthly rolling contracts. I think it'll really start to shift where you need to give those great experiences. You need to have the slick onboarding processes. But I think I could kind of speak to that. I think maybe Michael, if you want to jump in around kind of some of the legacy technology that's involved. I think you've had some fun trying to integrate with soap services and things from the 80s.
Yeah, and I think
we're doing this.
Thanks, Rob. Like most in the telco industry, we know and love the SIM card for the last 20 years, right? You walk down the high street, and even the face of the latest promotion is still that little chip as the icon, right? And it's going the way of the floppy disk save icon, right? It'll be something that our kids won't really understand, but it'll still exist for many, many years. And that thinking of the SIM card and the way it's permeated into how most service providers have rolled out eSIM is largely they've tried to replicate the model of using the SIM card, which is a physical thing, into the world of eSIM, which is completely digital. And we then see things like what Rob explained, processes meaning a store visit to get a QR code, or something being mailed to you that's printed on a piece of paper to activate. And there's a whole lot of processes that have been engineered around this little bit of plastic for the last 20 years. And it's been, from my perspective, working with the Planes team and Slice, it's been super refreshing to work in a world without that constrained thinking, and to move beyond the tech a little bit and put the customer experience like at the forefront. And then how do you make eSIM as simple as humanly possible for the customer to actually use, and not be constrained by, how do we ship SIM cards around? Or, well, we can't do that because we need to know this bit of information about the SIM card. And yeah, it's been hugely refreshing to design and work on a customer experience with that vision.
What about eSIMs has sort of enabled that proposition then? And what's allowed you guys, Rob, to start from scratch and to move away from kind of these legacy systems?
Yeah, I mean, I think Well, firstly, we're starting from scratch. I think that's the most basic point. And I think we're working with interested partners like yourselves and Michael, who, we're trying to abstract away from some of the vagaries underneath of telco. But I think for us, enabling that proposition is that we know customers, and especially the demographic, are so used to everything being digital now, and they want instant gratification. So for us, being able to, get someone to get on the network in 2 clicks it should feel normal to most people, but it's not where you have to wait for something to come in the post. So I think we've done a couple of things around that where, we're able to speed up the the reward for that customer when they're trying something out. So you can go straight from an ad, download the app, and then, in 2 minutes you're on the network and you're testing it out. And we know that, we're not trying to sell something to someone where maybe they live in an area where there's not good signal. We want them to try that. We want them to enable it. Then we want them to love us. So it's really about that kind of speed to providing the service at the end of the day that eSIM has helped us out with. I think there's kind of a load of other parallels that previously when it was a zip car, we had a cool app that opened the car. It was very cool. It was very fun, but there was a, very calculated business decision behind ensuring someone didn't have to wait for a card to come in the post. As soon as they thought of the idea, the spur of the moment, I need this car to get X, they can get in that car a few minutes later. And it's that same kind of thinking that we've kind of brought into the Slice experience.
So I guess what you're sort of saying is that the way, I guess the telco industry that you've worked in for years, Michael, used to be is locking people in and making it really hard to change. You've changed that. You let people try for free for 7 days. What about the brand? Like, how does the brand proposition sit on top of this bit of technology?
Yeah. Well, eSIM gives us a really solid foundation to tell that sort of modern progressive story and have a product point of difference from day one, which is really important. It might not be the thing that people ultimately stay for, but for us to sort of set our stall out from day one to say, look, we're doing things differently. We're using the newest, latest technology, but ultimately to make that about you. That's the reason we're doing it. So we didn't start from planning to be an eSIM proposition. We listened to people in research and realized that eSIM was the thing that would unlock a lot of the challenges that people had. So, for example, one of the main challenges to switching networks is basically inertia. So people just are cynical that all networks are the same, better the devil you know. If I jump to a different network, it's a big potential risk that I'm going to get the worse coverage than I've got now rather than better. And there was no opportunity to test that theory. You either went for it or you didn't. So inertia, people have been with the networks for years, but generally are like, I don't really like them, but what are you going to do? So eSIM gave us that opportunity to invite people to trial a new network, which has never been, you couldn't do that before. So you can check the coverage is better. You can check the service levels higher quality before making that leap. And as a new brand, it's a sort of marker of confidence that, you can try it. If you don't like it, you can walk away. We're that confident that you will love it and you'll want to stay. And we're not locking you in to do that. And when we shared eSIM as part of the proposition in follow-up research, people were really excited by it, saying things like, feels really simple and slick, feels like Monzo, which is exactly what we wanted to hear, because that's a big sort of peer brand for us. And they loved also that it offered a more sustainable option. So younger audiences, sustainability is a huge sort of core value. So the fact that you could remove that physical SIM and provide a more sustainable option was felt really beneficial. But eSIM, because it's a new technology, there's also that challenge of how we talk about it. Because eSIM, we focused on the benefits really, because eSIM is largely meaningless. Awareness is fairly low, and as a new brand, you really need to try and shortcut what's in it for you to get people to come and try it. So we've tried to focus on the benefits in a relatable way and find analogies or stories that connect. So, for example, that was some of the messaging around inviting people to trial. We've said they can cheat on their current mobile network because you just immediately understand that means you can do something alongside something else. And eSIM can run alongside your physical SIM. So it's just unlocking those barriers in that way as well, to make sure that people can connect with that platform.
So I guess what you're sort of doing is or what you've been able to do is the same thing that Monzo has done. Like you can open, there's almost no cost to the customer to, well, there's literally not, there's time, but there's not, it takes less time to download and like create an eSIM on Slice than it does to log into O2 and order an eSIM and put in your postcode and wait 3 to 5 days or whatever for it to turn up in the post. So you've removed the cost of someone trying the thing, and at the same time you lay it on a brand proposition which is way less stuffy, way more customer focused. That's like, that makes sense in the brand proposition, but I know from working on this that like there is a huge kind of like piece of sort of like there's a whole lot of stuff going on under the surface, which makes it really, which puts all this stuff together. What clever things are going on behind the scenes that have to happen, Michael? And then Rob, how have you made what is a really complex and tough piece of technology really easy for customers to like, as you said, download and start using in 2 clicks?
Yeah, I think, CJ, that really starts with the mindset that Jenna talks about, and it's about, you know, this getting rid of the fear around what might happen if someone is going to switch. Like, what's the implications that we've just made it so easy for someone to switch? So shouldn't we make this a little bit harder so that if the acquisition journey is a little bit more painful, therefore it leaves this lasting memory in the customer's mind that when it comes to switch, they'll think twice because they don't want to go through that experience again. And not having a mindset is about making it as simple as possible for the customer to do everything through the app is kind of one of the major principles and point of difference that it has been working with the team at Slice. And this vision that everything that the customer can do happens only through the app has meant that the tech stack underneath is all driven around automating as much as humanly possible. So, and make it as fast as humanly possible. So when you sign up for the first time and orchestrating all the things that need to happen and doing that as in a way that can ask the customer for the information they need and make it happen. Whether when a customer buys a new phone, having a process that makes it super simple for them to transfer the service over to their new phone without having to call someone or to speak with anyone, and automating these processes. And they're tricky. There's lots of moving parts to make all of this network happen. But without the mindset of, you know, trying to embrace making the customer experience as simple as humanly possible, you can quite quickly fall into the trap of, oh, well, that's good enough. If it doesn't work, we can get a CS agent to deal with that. And it can snowball and become a little bit toxic. And it's hugely refreshing to work with a vision that is all about, you know, exposing this functionality direct to the customer to do themselves.
And Rob, how have you guys, what things have you, I mean, this you know, single-mindedness about like making it as easy as humanly possible for the customer, how's that come to life in the product journey?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's probably the stubbornness and single-mindedness. I think sometimes Michael probably wouldn't say it's refreshing when we've pushed and pushed and pushed to do things, you know. And it's 100%. We want it to be all in app. We want it to be all self-service. We don't want websites. We don't want pop-ups. We don't want customer service. Obviously, we have to make those kind of trade-offs every now and then. But it's, you know, even in things where, for example, like swapping your eSIM. Like, we know there's going to be SIM swap fraud going on there if we make it super simple, but we have to push to another level to do things like device fingerprinting, etc., to go that like extra step to make sure that you don't have a 10-step process to carry out your SIM swap. For example, on other ones, you need to speak to an agent, you need to pass some information. So it's like how can we use technology? And sometimes it does, you know, it's just pushing it. Sometimes it is, and there's always that balance between time and the sort of, you know, quality. But it's always been our mindset to be super stubborn and, you know, single-minded around making this as simple as possible. So, I mean, the SIM swap is one example where, you know, there are challenges, and it might seem very simple. There are a load of challenges that happen around that. But if you kind of dig and push, you know, you will find those kind of answers to those problems, and they might take you a little bit longer, you know, might be a little bit harder to think about, but you know, it's that's kind of the core principles of when we've started to build this product. Is
I think
nothing should be a barrier.
Like one of where we started as well on this journey, along the way, we've had to pivot and think of new ways to address problems we didn't know existed. Like when we tested the first version of the app with some beta customers, it looks very different to what it does now, and it's actually engaging, you know, the founding slices in the journey of building the processes that actually work. So it's not our own creation, it's actually been created along with the customers, which I think is a very different way of approaching how to really scale eSIM.
Yeah, I think so. Just on that, Mike, I think that's a really important point there. And you know, some of this eSIM, it feels like it should be the simplest thing ever to install this. Along the way, we've had to change because in iOS 17 we started to get the one click. Before that, we still had the get emailed a QR code, find another device, do it, all of those things, and that's even changed along the way. And we've learned so much, even about the education with speaking to customers. Is I guess if you do this every day, you think it's really simple, but it's still very confusing to have multiple SIMs, switch it on. You know, the iOS flow is still quite convoluted and difficult to switch your SIM, share your data, decide which thing to send that on. So yeah, it's definitely been eye-opening for us, and we, you know, constantly have feedback, people testing it, really early versions out to customers in the beginning.
It's been it's been like incredibly refreshing, and in some ways I think surprising to work with a team that was like also so ready to launch something in such an early stage as well. And it like such, I mean, you say beta, Michael, I reckon that's like probably even a little bit like generous, but like the very first journey of this when we did it, and I guess this, Rob, comes a lot from your like kind of startup product background as well, as you understood this idea that we want to test the core part of it. We want to figure out what's not going to work first and launch that as fast as we can. And then, as you said, Michael, to like bring these early slices on board and have them help shape and change the roadmap. And it's even in from the, you know, the first release all the way through to now, it's interesting to see how much it's changed, which I guess just comes back to this, like putting the customer at the center, building it around the product, building it around the proposition. What other industries can benefit from using eSIM, I guess, Michael? Like we have this ability now to not necessarily need to have all of the underlying infrastructure. Who else can kind of leverage this technology, and where else are you guys seeing it at Monzo?
Yeah, so I think one of the things that's really exciting about this area, and I'm sure for many of the people on the call, is that eSIM is a completely new distribution model for telco, right? It's just tips it upside down. And the idea that you could install a SIM card through an app is that idea would be alien to the majority of the population a few years ago, right? And there's many people still discovering this now that you know think, wow, that's quite neat. Why haven't we done this before? And I think ultimately ease of distribution drives consumption, right? It means you engage with networks in a different way, and you can drive consumption. We've seen that with movies, we've seen it with music, we've seen it with games, media, all of that stuff. The more you make it easier to distribute, and consumption grows. And as a result, what that means is that businesses that are really obsessed and understand their customers are starting to see, well, hold on, mobile is something that our customers can benefit from. And it's, you know, it can be tackling a particular pain point around that feeling of being part of something that Slice is doing, but also like banks or sporting clubs or influencers or even online marketplaces who really have a huge amount of data about their customers and deep understanding are saying, well, actually mobile service is something our customers are a bit frustrated about, that we can actually address a need. And the barrier to entry is minimal, right? You need a set of APIs. You can do it on a cloud service. You don't need to ship SIM cards around. And, you know, we're seeing companies like Revolut here in the UK, Nomad in Brazil just yesterday partnered with a provider to launch eSIM as part of their banking offering. And they're able to offer mobile service as part of a bigger proposition. And I think it's a really, really exciting time for telco, and there'll be disruption as a result. But yeah, I think the idea of needing to ship SIM cards around and that frame of reference is changing, and it's exciting for some other industries.
So I mean, coming back to you then, Jenna, given that this it's I guess the ability to like give people connectivity is going to be somewhat ubiquitous, or the utility is decreasing to zero. Everyone is potentially going to be able to have it.
Yeah.
And your whole proposition so far has been about making it easy to like cheat on your existing provider or come and give us a go.
Yep.
Once people are on board, and we've seen that that's going to continue, the hard part, I guess, becomes around making people want to stay and making people want to stick around.
Yeah, for sure.
How are you guys approaching that challenge? And how are you thinking?
Yeah, and yeah, absolutely right. And that was always, that was in our minds from day one. The foundational layer is incredible, slick service, better than anything out there. But at some point, that will have parity. And we're well aware of that. That will keep you ahead for so long. So really, it's about the ownership positioning. So we're all about giving our customers a slice of the action, is the phrasing that we use. And a big part of that is reward and loyalty. And that's something that you don't really see from the other networks. So for us, every year a customer stays, we offer cash back at the end of that year. So the first year it's 10%, second year 15%, third year and forever, as long as you stay with us, 20%. And we've kind of set our stall out from day one to really live up to that ownership promise. So I talked about it at the top. We know that home ownership is something that feels really out of reach for the people that we're trying to talk to. So as part of the launch, we're giving one of our early customers 30K towards a house deposit. So we're drawing the winner on 20th of November. So there's still time to sign up. But we really want to demonstrate, we want to show rather than tell people that we're for them directly. And one of the freeing things about what we're building is that we're not trying to be for everyone. We're not trying to be a Vodafone. We're not trying to take over the entire market, which means that we can be really focused and really playful and really clear on what we offer. And we'll bring some people will love it and some people won't, and that's absolutely fine. But it just means that we've got that absolute focus on who we're talking to and what we're about. So the other side to ownership is giving customers agency and control over the network. That's really core. And a big part of that is the customer community that we've been building within the app. So this is where we listen. It's where we take suggestions for product development on board. We open votes on things like naming, hopefully, not the next Boating Boat face coming our way. We throw features in to test before they're released. We even do things like we'll share job specs that before they're shared more broadly. Really lots of ways that customers can see themselves in the experience. But we just want to have a bit of fun as well. Brands don't have to be boring. So for example, we released a referral challenge last week, built quickly and brilliantly by you guys. And the prizes again show we're not your average network. We're giving, one of the prizes is we'll buy an ad on the side of a bus in your local town for the day. So, and you can use it however you want. So you could be nice and promote something you care about, or your business or your hustle, or you could blow up a photo of your best mate and put that up there for the day, the worst photo you can find. So that, we just want to be able to have a little bit of fun with it as well. And the top prize will give someone the title of head of hype at Slice for the most referrals. So everything's about treating the customer like they're a part of the business rather than a pound sign. And that's hopefully what we think that will make customers want to join and stay to see what we do next. We've got loads of plans where we're very early doors and we're just really building from here.
I mean, I guess effectively the cashback is like you're paying me to stay, which is
exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, which is the opposite to the experience I usually have.
That's it.
Okay. Rob, what have you guys had to build into the product around this as well, and what kind of principles around customer service or customer experience have you factored in when making it easier, making people want to stay?
Yeah, I think the first part is that we're trying to be humble. I think, we've been talking about how amazing everything is today. We do things wrong and things go wrong. It's a pretty complex kind of ecosystem. Some of the things are out of our control. So I think on that customer service, we're trying to automate as much as possible, but we still have a human there if you want to get hold of them, almost immediately. I think, kind of my broadband provider, I had that exact thing of, I had an issue with them. I got annoyed. I changed to a new one. It broke. I went back to the old one. I still can't log into my account, and I've tried to speak to someone for 4 days and I haven't been able to do that. So I've just given up and I can't log in, but it's okay. So I think that part is that we're using the community, we're using CS to have real people And we'll obviously have to scale that as we go, but we're kind of learning, getting the data, we're trying to understand that. So it's really about being real people as well as kind of self-service and technology. So I think that from a CS side, I think there's kind of simple examples where I think there's a principle, and I don't know if I doubt there's children on eSIM, but it's like, don't be a dick. Is when we're doing cashback, we give people grace periods when, you know, they maybe want to leave for a month and they're going traveling, they can pause their plan, and we don't kind of break that cycle. So it's like everything that we do and build, and we track it, we show it, we try to delight the customer. So, you know, everything should be simple, smooth, slick, but also fun and enjoyable and have those quirky moments in it. You know, I think if you kind of go through the app, it's not staid, it's not boring. It's, you know, we're trying to find those little moments of delight and like, why did you actually, you know, do that? Let me try and think of any other. Yeah, I think those are probably most of the reasons. So it's being humble, understand, get that feedback. And I think, you know, we've had a couple of teething issues, but, you know, we're trying to engage as much as possible, be honest, open, and that's kind of from a service, but also from a kind of product point of view. We don't go in and say, this is the best way to do this. If someone, you know, if we get the feedback, we work with the customer to understand it. So there's no kind of, it's more about the core principles than some of the actual features.
Yeah, I've definitely seen that as I've gone through this like design and development process, this idea in the business model of like doing things that you don't have to do other than the fact it's like a good thing to do for the customer, which is so antithetical to like normal brands, right? Like the fact that I can take a month off and come back and not lose. No one would be surprised if I did lose that in you know, kind of the real world, but you're sort of like kicking the trend, which is, I guess it is. It's those delight moments that people go, oh, cool, like these guys are looking out for me, they're helping me out. Thinking about like, I guess the wider business for you guys then, and this is a topic of conversation and heated debate, I guess, from time to time in Planes, is this idea between businesses being product-led or being marketing or sales-led. Jenna and Rob, you sit like, you know, on, if I say it, like opposite sides of that kind of fence. How have you guys decided on how to focus the team strategy, and how do you think about the brand and the product, I guess, ecosystem at Slice?
Yeah, it's funny, we've never really questioned that, which maybe is rare, but I think the amazing thing about building something from scratch is we can create a brand experience rather than a brand and an experience, which is often what happens. These things sit separately. You have to market a thing that may not have been created with an audience first view in mind. We've always had the customer profile really clear between us as a, you know, me and Rob and the wider gang and all of our partners. So the understanding really is that the product is everything. You know, we don't have shops, we don't have staff, we don't have physical presence, we have the product. And that product is the thing that we have to get right, because that's the brand. You know, we're not in a world now where you can just tell people something and they'll believe it. You have to show them. So the marketing really, if the experience is right, is the easy bit. So they really go in lockstep. I don't think it's one's more important than the other. It's that they're one and the same. The product is the core experience. Would you agree, Rob? You might hate me, really. I'm very polite.
Gonna keep my job. No, I think it's definitely true, and it is refreshing and it's different. And I think, you know, we've been always very clear, and it was kind of what we would, you know, that was the vision that we were given, is to make sure that this is a brand product experience from the beginning. You know, things that are good for the customer, good for the brand, good for everyone else. So we just you know, really need to keep that, and it will be challenging. I think, you know, just that's a general kind of thing between product and marketing. You know, there's, you can get in the blame game of what we're not converting because this is X, blah. But I think it's, you know, as a company and organization, we need, and we've got those strong foundations of everything needs to work together, and we need to be honest, open, kind of, and work on that. Like, I guess, general kind of product principle. It's not us and them.
Yeah, there's no finger pointing. You know, we're
product includes technology.
Exactly, yeah, and we're a pretty lean team. So, you know, it's not that this department's versus that department's. It's me and Rob. you know, and we've got a small team, really high performing group of people, and we're all pointing in the same direction, you know, and that's super important. You know, we're all after the same goal. We're all really clear on our objectives and what we want to deliver. So it just means that everything is leaning in the same direction. There's no tension there, really.
Yeah, definitely. In my experience, I've seen the businesses that do the best, particularly in this consumer space, are those that don't really differentiate between product and marketing. They are like two sides of the same coin, and you can't have one without the other. I mean, Monzo is a really, you know, famous example of that too, right? Like, it's an incredible experience, it's a lovely brand, these like pink cards, but it's held up by the fact you can create an account in 2 minutes. And I think it's the same thing here. You can scan a QR code and you can be on Slice in 2 minutes, which is pretty remarkable, I think, for a telco.
I think, CJ, like the Planes team, with the way that you guys have helped, you know, test whether it's an idea from crazy marketing idea from Jenna around the referral scheme, or a bit of feedback from a customer and how we could improve something, like really push everyone to test it with customers, whether it's user validation before anything even is built, to really get everyone on the same page. And it doesn't mean that we need an army of people to deliver it if we've kind of validated the core idea and what we want to achieve. So I think that's really been great to kind of steer things in the right direction.
You've all made it very easy. So cool. I've got kind of one final question before we go to Q&A. So as everyone kind of rattles through this last question, if anyone in the audience has any questions, please fire them through. We've got a bunch in there now, so we'll see how many of those we can get through. So this is for each of you. What is one thing that other businesses can learn from how eSIM is disrupting telcos? And Rob, I'll go to you first.
Sure. I think just, and I'm going to kind of repeat a lot, I think just can use new technology to provide that instant gratification, and kind of building on the point that Michael said multiple times, like the ease of distribution to increases the consumption. So it's, you know, just remove barriers to things, and, you know, we still have to see if this will happen, but don't get stuck in your kind of legacy ways because it's making revenue right now. It might not make revenue in a few years' time when these things get unbundled and processes and things get a lot easier. So things just kind of keep on moving forward, and use that new technology. It's pretty basic, but it unlocks a lot of, not basic for you, Michael, but for the end user.
Michael?
Yeah, I think that ultimately having fear of enabling it, making it easier for someone to switch, shouldn't be an excuse for creating a shit experience, right? That ultimately you've got to look at these new technologies, whatever it happens to be in your industry, as an opportunity, and then what can you do to actually make things simpler for customers. And I think eSIM is a great story that'll be written about, you know, in many years' time, around how there will be casualties in those that failed to take the opportunity, and were paralyzed by that fear that ultimately it was too easy for someone to switch, but they didn't do anything about it. So yeah, I think that's the big lesson to be learned here.
And finally, Jenna, where are you?
Yeah, I suppose I guess go where the customer leads you and challenge convention. You know, one of the principles that we sort of work to is if all the other telcos are doing it, you probably should run the other way. And you know, convention's good in some instances. You know, it's that familiarity with the customers, and that expectation is fine in some instances. But you know, if their customers are saying that something doesn't work, disrupt it, challenge that convention, and see where you get to.
There we go. Don't be afraid. That's basically what I'm hearing. Don't be scared. Or make sure the rest of your business is so good that they don't want to leave. And if you're working with anyone that doesn't have that, then maybe you should like question it. Cool. All right, we've got a bit of time to go to some of these audience questions. So I'll just have a quick look through here. All right, I'm going to start with the fun one. What does the future of Slice look like?
We have some interesting things coming down the pipeline that we can't say. So I'm not going to be able to give a super long answer to that one, but we've got some very interesting stuff that we'll be able to share in the coming months that we're really excited about. And yeah, kind of just new and different ways of surprising and delighting the customer, and some of that will be fairly organic as we listen to what people want, what's working, what isn't, and how we build from there.
So we've got to wait and see.
Pretty much.
What's the space?
You've got to sign up.
Sign up.
Sign up, find out. Cool. I'll start with you, Rob. This is one for you, and then it'd also be interesting, Michael, to hear your perspective on this. What do you see as the biggest challenges for the next 6 to 12 months?
For us, I guess, I think it's really for us just kind of making sure that we keep the principles that we've got in terms of product, making sure that we don't kind of bloat the product, we don't put things out that people aren't asking for, we don't focus on the wrong things. And I think it's keep on listening. I think that's from a kind of general point of view. And then I think, as we start to grow and as we start to expand, we will have, I think, because we're an MVNO, I think there was a question in the comments that we're an MVNO. So we are, we do have constraints from third parties, from other sources. And it's like, how do we work around those? How do we push those? Because, I think there's a bit about just building, we've been talking about building a brand and a product, but underneath we are receiving services from someone else to pass on. And it's, there's a lot of commercial challenges, there's a lot of technical challenges. So I think it's just really, keeping that moving forward. And if you're small, I guess in this industry, it's much harder to get those things done. So I think, let's get some more customers as always. Sign up.
Yeah, and I think to add to that, being a virtual network operator, the construct is a bit different, but it doesn't necessarily mean that we're deaf to the feedback or the challenges of providing a mobile service. It's complex, right? When customers go on holiday or have trouble sending a text message to a certain number, these are the processes that are being actively kind of developed as we build out the proposition over the next 12 months with the team. And I think that not forgetting that this is a really important service, and focusing on what can we do, what's in our control, what's out of our control to improve that, I think is going to be one of the big challenges over the next 12 months. But working with Rob and Jenna to make that happen.
One question here, a couple of sort of technical ones. The first one I've got is here: what are the risks for traditional MVNOs or MNOs who do not embrace building a good digital experience?
I think, well, maybe Rob can add to this, but I think, ultimately, if someone is going to take advantage of this to make it easy to switch, right, to embrace this digital only way of doing it. So I think ultimately not having a simple experience that allows customers to onboard and use the service will be an existential element as more and more operators and service providers embrace this thing. So I think it is an existential kind of thing in the long run. I don't know, Rob, if you've got any view on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think just generally, I think people want these digital experiences, and that's for any industry. And I think for the telco industry, I mean, the handset manufacturers are making eSIM-only devices. And if you kind of are waiting until that happens, then you won't have learned, you won't have kind of got the feedback, and you'll kind of bolt something onto top of an existing process. So it's about really starting that early, because in the US, all of the iPhones are now eSIM only, and that might come here sometime soon. We thought it might come this year. It hasn't. There's probably pressure around in the industry, but if you leave it too long, you're gonna have a pretty rubbish experience just bolted on the top of an old one, which we've seen so far. So it's about really just rethinking how you do those from the ground up.
Hopefully none of them
Hopefully what?
do. None of them do.
Yeah. And there's none of them here today. This is a question which goes well above my head when it comes to the technology around this, but does Slice check the KPIs for voice and data services using the consumer eSIM profiles when their users are on both their home and network while they're roaming?
Do you want me to take that one, Rob?
I'm in the pictures and the feelings.
Yeah, so if you think about the way Slice has been engineered, is it sits on a network enabler, and they provide a whole set of KPIs, monitoring infrastructure to surface that to the team at Slice. And I think the key bit there is not just data for data's sake, but actually correlating the stuff that it's telling us with what it really means for the customer and doing something about it. And that could be actually reaching out to the customer to find out what's going on, or being able to use that to troubleshoot and get them out of trouble. So the answer is yes, the data is there, and then it's not necessarily Rob and Jenna that are collecting that information, but it's service providers that are enabling the network that provide that to the team.
I think just to add to that, like our whole philosophy is also, it's very much around customer feedback, but it's also very data led. And from the beginning, we capture every bit of data we can, that we do that in an ethical way, but we capture data to make sure that the experience is better. If it's sort of product analytics, learning about what are the customers doing, where they're having challenges, as well as kind of being able to prompt an agent to get hold of someone. We can see has someone installed SIM or not, how long did it take them to do that. We can learn from that information, and we can also push that back kind of in real time to be able to help our customers to solve those issues. So kind of goes, that's also been a core principle, not just the feelings, but making sure that we can understand it as we scale and grow.
Have you got any idea, I guess, when eSIM on Apple Watch is going to be supported? Have you had much, in your dealings with Apple and things, if that's coming and when? No.
No, I think you can kind of look for yourself, but there's the MNOs that support Apple Watch in the UK at the moment. So there's we need to just have conversations on that. A lot of these things are restricted. For example, before iOS 17, unless you had a carrier agreement, you couldn't install an eSIM with the one-click thing. So a lot of these things, I think, there are constraints that are kind of bigger than us little people, and we need to try and work around this. Yeah, I've just seen someone, Vodafone Island, an MNO carrier, the same as here in the UK. So all of these things we'd love to do, and we need to keep on pushing. Instead, kind of knocking on those doors.
Two more questions, and then we'll kind of wrap. The first one, I think this is a nice story, Rob, to kind of talk to, but how do you guys support customers with low levels of digital literacy, which could be a barrier to eSIM adoption?
Yeah, I think it's been one of the hardest things for us is the education. We're trying to, and then to be quite honest, our first version of the app was extremely slick. If you were, I guess, someone maybe like me who plays around and is happy to click and install things and read, etc. So I think on that we've really took that feedback on, and I kind of when I think of product, I always try and strip it back to absolutely nothing and then add on to it, so it's still simple. And we've added extra explainer screens, we've added more information. We've tried to learn and understand how customers are using it. So it's about adding that more more information. I think there's a question about travel eSIMs. I think we also have a challenge, is because as soon as you say eSIM, I think that's the mental model people have as travel eSIMs. So as soon as you say eSIM, I've had it from our colleagues and friends who are like, oh, that's the travel eSIM industry is great, and it's like, no, it's just a chip on the phone that allows you to have the network, and it's around changing that mental model of it. This can just be my domestic network. So I think there's an interesting education piece where the travel eSIM market went up first, and it's just a chip that allows you to have a network and make it really easy to do it. It's not a thing, and that's an interesting kind of positioning, branding, explainer as well, on top of like actually clicking the buttons.
Yeah, I think there's a balance between the education around eSIM and walking people through that as a new technology versus sort of digital literacy more broadly. Going back to that, we're not for everyone. We are for digital natives with very high digital service expectations. So we're not, if someone wants to join Slice, amazing. If they're not super digitally literate, then we can handhold them through that process, but that's not who we're talking to primarily. And we will be focused in that messaging, and how we show up is for people who have that high expectation, and we're meeting that high expectation where it is.
Cool. This is sadly going to be probably the last question we have time for, but what has been your biggest lesson learned from launching Slice? And Michael, we'll start with you.
I think the key thing is test early and test often is probably the biggest one for me, having worked on different eSIM deployments with different service providers. I think being able to really go out and engage with your demographic. Do they actually understand what you're asking them to do and the value you're providing them? I think has been a really valuable lesson that if I had a time machine and could go and apply that lesson back to previous projects I worked on, I think would have had very, very different outcome. So I think that's been a really big one for me.
It's music to all of the product people's ears, often and early. Jenna?
Yeah, I think it's probably similar. Just not being afraid to fail. We've tried things and we've learned quickly and we've adapted. Agile methodology basically. But as a business, we have that mindset. We're always trying things. We encourage everyone in the team to have ideas and bring them to the table, and we'll try it. If it doesn't work, we move on. So that's, I think, as a startup, it's something that I've tried to do in bigger organizations in the past to varying degrees of success, but we've not had any barriers to operating in that way here, which has been great.
And what about you, Rob? Last one.
I mean, I think all of those things. I think, but I think the key learning for me is just things can be convoluted and things can be quite difficult and challenging in this environment. And it's just really about pushing, and keep asking those questions, because there will be a workaround, there will be a solution. You just need to maybe ask 100 times and go knock on someone's door to get it done, because ultimately you want the best experience for the customer.
Don't be scared to be the perpetual 2-year-old and keep asking why. Why? Awesome. This has been really enjoyable. Thank you, guys. I know everyone here. We've got lots of questions that we haven't been able to answer today as well, so we might figure out a way to answer some of those. Perhaps we just come back to you directly. But I've got 2 things to kind of wrap with today. The first thing is we will put the QR code up at the end. Make sure you give Slice a go. It's free for the first 7 days, and then if you use the code webinar, then you're going to get 50% off your first month as well. So there we go. They're giving it away to give it a go. And then the second thing as well is that if anyone here is interested in a free workshop with the Planes team, me and Michael, on how eSIMs might fit into your product strategy or into your roadmap, we are running these free workshops together. We've been doing these with all sorts of companies, from hospitality to travel to fintechs and everything in between. So if that's something that you might want to have a chat about, feel free to shoot me an email, cj@planes.agency. Thank you all very much. We will share a recording of this later on today. And yeah, go give Slice a go.